So we need to have a talk. Look, I know that COVID is making everybody frustrated. We've all got to wear masks out in public, and everybody hates that because, well, masks are boring and they make your face sweaty and they're not very cool and it's difficult to be understood, unless, of course, you have a custom mask like mine. Thanks, Berry Meat. Anyway, we need to have a chat because some things are going on at the moment that are not cool. You see, ever since COVID kind of really got its teeth in, and I think that's probably maybe 3 or 4 months ago now, people have really started to behave like complete and utter idiots online, and they're starting to be really horrible to each other. And frankly, it's disappointing, it's tiring, and it's affecting people who make content for you guys to watch on YouTube, including me. In addition, it's even making people not want to even own an electric car or get involved in an electric car. And a grassroots campaign, which for the most part was pretty accepting and welcoming of anybody who wanted to make smart choices about their future transportation, has become an echo chamber of hatred. And well, it's got to stop. Before I get there, though, let's go back, let's rewind and remember what the electric car world used to be like and what my involvement in the electric car world used to be like. I got involved in electric cars in 2007, and that's when I started owning my own electric car. I had an electric bicycle shortly before that, and shortly after I started driving an EV, I actually started making videos and podcasts about electric cars. Those were back in the heady days when if you wanted an electric car, you either had to convert one yourself, be lucky enough to own one of a very rare few of previous generation electric cars that were made at the turn of the century. Things like the Toyota RAV4 EV or electric Peugeots in Europe. And the whole experience was a very different one to where it is today. Back then, really the entry-level point was, do you want to drive an EV? Are you interested in owning an electric car? And if the answer was yes, then generally you were a cool person, or at least people were there who wanted to help you, who wanted to help you make that transition. People were willing to make sure that you could reach your goal, whether it was turning a pedal bicycle into an electric bicycle, converting your own car from internal combustion engine to electric, or whether it was owning a plug-in Prius, which back then you had to convert yourself or pay someone a large amount of money to do, whether it was trying to find something like a RAV4 EV on eBay and buying that, because back then RAV4 EVs, even then, were pretty expensive and pretty rare, or actually going out of your way to buy one of the very early production EVs or small scale production cars out there. I'm talking about my first car, the City L. That was a fun little car, but it was a very limited car in terms of its capabilities. But that didn't matter because I was driving an electric car and people were pretty cool about the fact that you were driving an electric car. Same thing for the G-Wiz. The G-Wiz today, objectively, is a terrible car. It's small range, heavy lead acid batteries, lithium ions later on, limited top speed, limited range, and the driving position. Oh God, the driving position. I actually owned one for a short period of time. Don't judge. It was free. I rescued it from the junkyard. And it wasn't a particularly pleasant vehicle to drive, but it was electric and that was cool. And everybody was very pleased to see electric cars. And while things like the G-Wiz was the butt of jokes from the likes of Jeremy Clarkson et al., it was the start of something cool. Since then, things have changed a lot. We now have production electric cars that are highway capable, can charge quickly, can go a long way. It started really with cars like the Tesla Roadster, the original Tesla Roadster in 2008, which really changed people's opinions. People who weren't already into electric vehicles changed people's opinions of electric cars. It was fast, it was sexy, it was expensive, but it proved that electric cars didn't need to be boring or a little nerdy. And more people wanted to get behind the wheel of one. And then, of course, you had the early Nissan Leaf and all the cars that followed. The Renault Zoe, then we had the Volt and the Bolt and the Kona and the e-Niro and the Ioniq and the Golf, the e-Golf and the e-Up and the ID3 and the BMW i3. There's one coming right towards me right now. And then, of course, you've got all the other Teslas, the S, the X, the 3, and most recently the Y. Let's not forget the Cybertruck. And electric cars have gone from being kind of a nerdy pastime with quite noble goals to electrify the world, to get people off fossil fuels, to make the world a better place, to do something about our personal transportation, which reduces emissions, which reduces our reliance on foreign oil. And that was a good, noble cause. But lately, like I say, in the last 3-4 months, there's been a real change online in attitudes towards electric cars and content creators who are making videos about cars. And it's really starting to get to me, and I know it's starting to get to other people too. I am, of course, talking about, I wouldn't necessarily call it trolling, because a lot of the people who are making comments are not necessarily objectively trying to be trolls. They're being extremely closed-minded. They're being extremely unwilling to accept that other people have different lifestyles and different needs and wants. And it's become a shouting match. Exhibit A in this case, of course, is Rich Benoit from Rich Rebuilds. He has made himself a name by rebuilding salvage cars. And he was rebuilding salvage cars long before he decided to rebuild a Tesla Model S. But when he did that initial rebuild of a wrecked Tesla Model S, got that car running again, there was a lot of interest in that because the Tesla Model S is an expensive car, and he was helping people figure out ways of bringing salvage cars back to life in a safe way, in a well done way, and allowing those cars to continue to operate on the road. And an electric car on the road is far better than an electric car that's been scrapped because it's deemed too expensive to repair. And let's not forget, most insurance write-offs that happen are insurance write-offs because the insurance company, either the insurance company or the car company, decides that repairing this car would be uneconomical using the OEM parts and the OEM skills and the hours of labor. But that doesn't mean that somebody else can't repair that car cost effectively and safely. Regardless of these videos, which have been really, really popular, Rich has become kind of a target for people. And when he announced he was going to sell his Tesla because he wanted a different challenge, a new challenge, and he's just got a 1969 Mini, which is just freaking amazing. I love Mini. The original Minis, they are fantastic. They're great. I'd love to own one. But the hate he's received has got so bad that people have actually campaigned to remove his videos from YouTube, reported his videos for content violations, and had them removed from YouTube. I just want you to think about that for a second. Someone who has done an incredible amount of good in the electric car world has had their videos campaigned against to the point that they were automatically removed, even though YouTube has said they don't violate any community guidelines. Those videos were taken down temporarily because people gamed the system and people decided that they didn't like what he had to say because he'd said, I'm not going to own a Tesla anymore. That is just crazy and stupid, and it just upsets me no end. On the flip side, we've got people like Sean Mitchell, who gave a really good review of the Audi e-tron and how it drove and how it felt. And because he dared be glowing about it, he was criticised by people on YouTube because it wasn't a Tesla. And, you know, today I published a video on YouTube talking about the 2020 Bolt EV. Before that video had even, because it was set to premiere, before that video had even gone live, we had people in the comments being downright vulgar about the Bolt. I actually had to remove some because they were just, they weren't appropriate, full stop. And other people just being derogatory about what is a very competent electric car. And the message is becoming clear. If you don't own a Tesla, you are nobody. If you don't own a Tesla or don't want to own a Tesla, then you're not really making a difference in the electric car world. And I hate that sentiment. I hate it. And I'm cognizant in making this video today that I am going to be attacked for what I have to say. I am cognizant that in discussing this problem and saying, hey, we need to solve it, people are going to get really angry with me. They're going to have a go. They're going to want to accuse me of hating on Tesla and all those other things. And I would like to be really clear about something. I love the Model 3. I haven't driven the Model Y yet. I'm sure I like it. I've ridden and driven a Model X, and it's a very good car. I love the Model S. In fact, if I had to choose between which car I was going to own, I'd probably end up with an S because it's better suited to my needs. But at the same point, I would never dream of dismissing someone based on the car that they choose. At the end of the day, it's about what the car runs on. Transport Evolved has never been about picking winners or losers in the cleaner, greener, safer and smarter world. It's about helping people make smart decisions and smart choices about the cars that they want to own going forwards. And when I see this targeted hate against people who've done amazing things in the sector, it just makes my blood boil. Because the only purpose that has, the only purpose is to belittle people who don't have the same viewpoint as you. And that is abhorrent. It is unacceptable in a civilized society. It's childish. It's pathetic. And frankly, we, all of us, are better than that. We're better than that. We should be able to look at these different vehicles and go, wow, look at the choice that there is coming to market. And this car may not be the best car for me. I accept that. But this other car might be great for this other person. And we need to be willing to have smart, sensible, engaged conversations. And yeah, when I do a review, I'm always going to say, well, this car lacks this or this car lacks that. But at the end of the day, the best car for you is the one that fits your budget and does exactly what you need it to. It shouldn't be about playing badge games. And the mentality that now exists puts me off creating content. I've spoken to other people who also have that same lack of interest in making electric car content because they know if they try and report in an unbiased way on the news, someone is going to moan at them, someone is going to hate on them. And the whole point here is that we need to be transitioning ourselves away from fossil fuels. We need to be more focused on the transition and less focused on the badge on the front of the car. And every automaker, every single automaker out there has done stupid things, has done illegal things. I have every belief that every automaker at some point or other has done something that is completely illegal and completely stupid and should be called out for that. But we must make sure that we don't just end up with this echo chamber where people let one company get away with stuff and then really tighten down on other companies, or say that one company cannot change when it is capable of change and when it is trying to. I don't know if I've ever told you why I got into electric cars in the first place. I got into electric cars because in the 1990s, the farmland that my dad was paid to look after flooded. It was a freshwater marshland, and the dairy herds that my dad was paid to look after would graze on that land. And there was a massive flood. 8 to 10 feet of salt water flooded the marshland, and it meant that the farmer who owned the herd could no longer afford to feed them because there was no feed for them during the summer. And so my dad lost his job and we had to move. And that made a really big impact on my personal life, my growth as a child. You know, I was, I think, 12 or 13 when that happened, and it really made an impact on my life. And as a child of the 70s and 80s, I've always grown up believing that we as humans can do better. You know, I grew up in the heyday of the space shuttle. I grew up in the heyday, the early days of the ISS. And it was about people working together to solve problems. Global warming is a major problem. Major problem. And we all of us have to attack it and work to solve our problems. That includes things like eating less meat or no meat, changing the way we work, changing the way we consume, being less worried about buying the latest and greatest of something, instead focusing on how we make things last, how we recycle, how we reuse. I would love to see more people working to have permaculture as part of their life. I would love to see people just generally grow more things in their garden and be more connected from the things that they eat, you know, that whole chain. We've started, well, for the last 6 months or so, we buy a lot of our stuff from a local farm shop because we've made a decision that while we try and reduce what we eat and where we eat stuff from and to make sure we don't have processed foods and everything is local and fresh, we're also trying to support local businesses rather than big multinationals, because that is a better option. And the same is true for transportation. So I know this has been ranty, but I want you to really think next time you go to press that button. If moaning about a company and saying this car is terrible and you are an idiot if you own it, reporting someone who has helped salvage cars get back on the road and actually actively trying to remove that content, trying to dox someone, which is what we've been suffering from lately. Someone's trying to pretend to be me by stealing my phone, and I've been talking to the cell phone provider. I've been trying to fix that. Apologies, by the way, if the camera's a bit funny. We're going through some shaded areas. The only reason why this is all happening is because people are absolutely religiously, they're becoming religious zealots about one company. And I think we know which company we're talking about. It generally all seems to come from so-called fanboys. And I feel at this point it's really important to reiterate that most Tesla owners that I know are wonderful people. They would never dream of doing this crazy stuff. But there is a very vocal contingent online of fanboys who are just trying to spoil it for everybody else. And just like, you know, the political lines are being drawn between the right and the left in the United States and the UK and all around the world. We're still having this now in the electric car world, and it's taking something that I feel very passionately about, something that I really enjoy covering. I love making this content. I consider this not a job, but just a fun thing to do. And luckily I get paid to do it. But honestly, I've actually given a lot of thought lately to why bother. Because at the end of the day, there are people like me and Rich and Sean and plenty of others who are putting themselves on the line, who are putting their content out there. And the mob mentality is preventing us, at least, and I'm speaking personally, I don't want to speak for them, is preventing me, certainly, from covering stuff, wanting to cover stuff. Because I'm fed up with the backlash, and I'm fed up with the name calling, and I'm fed up with the purposeful, hateful comments. And it's happening more and more and more. And if you don't think it's related to Elon, I just want to throw in one final thing. Or Tesla, sorry. The other day, Elon Musk put a tweet out and said, pronouns are stupid. And immediately following that, for about 2 days, the amount of hate that we got on the channel went up exponentially. The amount of hate that we got from people posting transphobic comments, posting anti-LGBT comments went up. Now, I don't want to do the kind of the causation correlation thing, but it seems very strange that the increase occurred the day following that tweet. Elon has a very large fan base, and I think maybe it's Elon's fans that are causing problems, not Tesla fans. I don't know. But my plea is to stop fighting. Let's work for the same freaking thing, this goal of getting more people behind the wheel of an electric car. And that means making more affordable cars, not shaming people who don't own Teslas, supporting the third-party extension of existing cars, companies that are seeking to make cars last longer, even after their original manufacturers may no longer really want to work on them. And that's super important. So can we work on that? Please. Thanks for watching. Keep evolving.